think a lot of students have just gotten another sense of how to belong and how to create relationships outside of what were the traditional avenues.
And a lot of my students talk about how they feel safe in the esports program, and that's their family, that's their community. And I think the esports gives kids a future that they might otherwise not have.
Man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to PlayVS. My name is Perino. I am joined by my co-host, the Doctor. And on this lovely evening, we have the Mountain Region League of Legends Grand Finals between Clark High School and Brighton High School. Doctor, good to be back here. Second set of the day should be another excellent showcase.
Yeah, I mean, we have another best-of-3 grand finals for the state championship on our hands, like you said, between Brighton Varsity and Clark High School. I am excited to see how these two teams pair off. You know, looking at the bracket that they've worked their ways through, you know, there's been a lot of, challenging opponents before them, but these are the teams to have persevered through. These are the two teams that we will be talking about today in earnest as we see the meta evolve across the series, make sure that the players are picking what they want to pick, and interacting in, some very fun and hopefully sportsman-like play.
Yes, absolutely. Both of these teams coming into the final with a 10-2 match record. So obviously very strong in the regular season and very strong in the postseason. You have to play incredibly well to get to this point. But now it's all come down to this, right? All the work that you've put in through the season, all the work that you've put into the game and with your teammates together comes to this. And the one thing you just hope for is that everyone plays at the absolute highest level, because it's all or nothing here.
Yeah, I mean, we only have one day, one best-of-3 to crown the championship. They've worked so hard to get here, and we're just going to jump into draft to see how they decide to play out their one chance. Now, we've talked a couple times throughout the last couple weeks now about what you're doing in draft phase. Are you banning away, strong picks? Are you banning away personal picks? Are you banning away just because you don't like it? Right now with a Katarina ban, that's definitely either a I hate it ban or they're really good at it ban.
Yes, Katarina is one of those mid laners who can be obnoxious when your opponent plays her well. So seems to be a personal choice ban, as it's followed up by a Teemo. Teemo has a reputation to be annoying as well. So another one of those champions you just, not today.
Yeah, I mean, really can be difficult to deal with in the top lane if you're on a lot of these melee bruisers / tank style champions. He's just that champion that just drains you, constantly pelting you with toxic darks, draining those HP bars, and then once he hits level 6, just laying mushroom minefields throughout, the entirety of the map that just kind of go poof, and so does your health bar. So definitely worthwhile getting banned away. Meanwhile, on the Clark High side, we do see lots of meta champions coming through. The Elise in the jungle, we saw a ton of it last week. Wukong, very strong in his current iteration, lots of damage and crowd control available in the kit. And Fiddlesticks is just your typical Fiddlesticks, although with now more sustain, very difficult to deal with currently.
Yes, Fiddlesticks, of course, another annoying champion, but I'm looking at some of these picks coming out now. We can see, the meta is starting to evolve, and I want to point out an interesting one here. That is a Kai'Sa pick there on Clark High. Kai'Sa's in an interesting spot in the AD carry position, and especially giving her priority pick, I think, is a bold decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very comfortable pick there. If you've played for multiple seasons now, then Kai'Sa is going to be a very, very comfortable pick for you. Last season, overall, the #1 AD carry that, got you the most use out of it, but it can have some drawbacks in the current meta, not nearly as strong as it used to, really reliant on items to really get to a point of, viability, which is why we see it paired with this Morgana here, hopeful at pressing the lane, making sure that there can't be too much aggression against their AD carry player. Meanwhile, being able to hopefully get some early takedowns to really, funnel some money into the Kaisa there. But the build so far coming out of Brighton High right now, really, really aggressive. Master Yi, stat stick. It's going to either win the game or lose the game at a certain point. They just have to get it there. Pike, very strong in the support role, having a finisher built into his ultimate, being able to give tons of gold to his team as a result of it. And then Lucian's just really a throwback AD carry that can really spike hard in the mid game.
Yes, as we see our final wave of picks coming in, Brighton High will round up that squad with both the Vigar and the Aurelia in the top lane. So, very interesting choice from Brighton High, but there is not a ton of tankiness on that team. That's a very difficult thing to go up against, perhaps when you're looking at EdW Clark, who have now come out with their full composition there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we see lots of attack damage coming out from both of these squads, really pinning a lot onto their semi-solo AP carries. The Vigar being the only source of magic damage on this Brighton High squad, really reliant on getting that going, getting the items behind it to make sure that, your opponents can't just build straight armor and really negate your team. Whereas the Clark High, they have the Morgana from the support role, which can do damage. Like, it's not that the role is so starved that they don't get items behind the kit and make sure that they do pack a punch, but really relying on this machine gun Cassiopeia, really being able to spam out those twin fangs and miasmas and, all the poison that she can do, really, really spiking damage once she gets a couple items behind her. But again, if those two champions fall off and don't really do much of anything, then, a couple armor items for Brighton High really shuts down the Kaisa Yorick Jarvan combo that sometimes can be kind of spiky.
Yes, this is setting up, I think, to be a very explosive game here. Should the players, choose to really, pick their fights and go at each other, this is going to be volatile, I think, early on. You have a ton of, aggressive picks on both sides, and I just think you're going to see some fireworks coming out in game one.
Yeah, I mean, super, super volatile, like you were saying. Any single champion lands a crowd control ability, it's kind of game over for that champion. Pike, very, burst style champion, being able to land the Bone Skewer into just the rest of the engagement there, finishing with the finisher on the ultimate, stacking up coins in his assister's pocket, sharing the wealth, as it were. Whereas Morgana, always known for her binding. There's so many memes out there about when you get hit by a dark binding, you go mow the lawn, you take a nap, you've raised some kids to college age, all of this can be done, and then you might eventually be out of the crowd control. And I mean, there's just so much, agency and volatility across both these compositions.
Yes, I love that it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Not conservative. What would the opposite of conservative be? I guess aggressive, right? In the sense that, hey, we're here to play to win, and that's really what I always root for in these grand finals. Is I want to see teams that are willing to take chances and willing to take risks and try to be the initiators. You don't want to hold back on anything here. As we mentioned, this is the grand final. That you want that first place trophy. You want the glory for your school, and I think the best way to do that is to just take the initiative to the other team.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, this is, kind of an exciting draft where one thing going wrong can spell disaster for the rest of the game. But this is a best-of-3 series. These teams do have overall 3 chances to get a victory. They only need to land twice. So, I mean, flip a coin 3 times. Eventually, you're going to win heads throughout. So they do have to think about this game one a little bit, but if you come out swinging with a composition like this, then it really opens up the potential to get that head start, get that strong mental game out of the way, being able to go into your next game, advantageous. Whereas like if you played it safe or, picked a losing draft and then it just went out that way, now you're not feeling so great. You need to really recoup yourself and make sure that you're ready for the game too, which can be a bit of a struggle sometimes. These are players here in the grand finals. There's a lot of pressure coming in for them here for their school, and they really want to win and, like you said, bring home that trophy. So you need to come out strong, win the mental game and the actual League of Legends game to boot before you can get into that second game and really start throwing things around.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to touch on some of the statistics that we have from, the previous match records that we're looking on. I'm keeping an eye, we're talking about that aggressive style. I'm looking at Dinosaur Chainsaw here from Brighton High. During the regular season, KDA, 5.528, 57% takedown participation rate. You best believe that Pike will be going for absolutely everything and trying to establish a lead for his team.
Yeah, and now that we are in the game, we can see the two teams fanning out as standard, typical 5-point starts. And I'm kind of curious because when you typically look at a draft like Brighton's, you expect it to be Lucian in the bottom lane, Vigar in the mid lane. But this is a mix 'em up, a stick 'em up, and we do have Lucian in that mid lane holding up the Cassiopeia, trying to really prevent that scaling champion from existing.
And now, as we see that adjustment, the one thing that I'm interested to see is how does the Vigar handle the Kai'Sa Morgana bot lane? Obviously, when you have Kai'Sa, who's a unique AD carry in her style in the sense that she really dives right in, right? She's very mobile. She jumps in and jumps on top of people. Vigar might actually do okay there because of his ability to have that CC and scale through the AD carry role.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty interesting matchup that we don't see too much of. Them both being scaling style champions, though, does lead to some interesting interactions within the next couple minutes.
Oh, and as we see here, Seeker taking an extended trade. They're not going too hot for him, though. He's going to take a ton of damage on the top lane. That's already an advantage for later man there.
Yeah, I mean, really taking advantage of that Aurelia passive.
Oh, and here we go. This is the volatility that we talked about here in this bottom lane. As already we see an Ignite coming out onto the Kai'Sa. She's just going to sit there and take some damage. And ultimately, no takedowns, but already you can see a little bit of a positional battle and just how quickly that engagement happens.
Yeah, I mean, we can already see right off the bat how effective this Pike Vigar combination can be. You can set up the event horizon with the Vigar, which then locks the opponent into this, 8x8 box.
Oh, here we go. That's actually a great return there from Brighton. They're just going to turn this fight around. Obviously, the gank coming in from the jungle, but it's ultimately Clark who find the first takedown. It will be Cufflets on the Morgana finding that. And wow, that is a very quick start as we look at the top lane here as well. Litterman's going in on Seeker, trying to establish a little bit there on the top lane as well, but not quite, both so low.
Yeah, and we saw Vigar there not respecting the Morgana binding. They were basically out of the engagement, making sure that the Pike was able to survive. They didn't have to worry about the gank. They CC'd the Jarvan so that there wasn't anything left to do. But the binding coming through and just really ruining the day. Lots of damage coming through already.
Oh, and you can see those little Yorick minions as Aurelia's going to have to just push through, and she's actually just going to push right through the topside jungle. This is a dangerous spot, though. Has to be very careful, and will ultimately get helped out by her jungle there, making his presence known in that top lane. So we did touch on it. Already extremely volatile. We've seen tons of damage output. Only one takedown to show, but we're only 4 minutes in. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, both teams showing some proclivity to their picks here. Making sure that they try and get a read on what the opponent's going to be doing and how the opponent plays. Not every Yorick player plays the same. Not every Vigar bot player plays the same. And so you need to figure out which version of the champion you're playing against and how best to try to exploit that. And so right now, we're just going to see some farming for a little bit longer. Once the junglers are back out on the map, Jarvan is going to be looking to make another play. And right now, it's expected that he's going to go bottom lane. They have this huge wave building up against them. They're going to be pushing it in. The Vigar and the Pyke should potentially have an opportunity to either go back to base or roam. But with how far back they're hanging out in the lane, you can know they think Jarvan is nearby. They think they're going to get ganked, and they don't want to have to worry about that, especially now that Vigar has no flash.
Yes, and the Vigar, of course, already a little bit behind there, that 0-1-0. You don't want to let that get too far out of hand. Vigar takes a long time to get online. He doesn't do a ton of damage early there, so it can be difficult when all of a sudden you have the Morgana Dark Binding in your face, the Kai'Sa jumping in behind it. It can become a lot to deal with. They do have to be careful here at Brighton not to let that bot lane get out of control.
Yeah, and one thing that Kai'Sa does bring the Vigar doesn't is consistent output of damage. You know, being a mage, you do have cooldowns involved with your kit. It's just how the champion style works. His cooldowns can get very low as the more stacks of his passive he gains, the shorter the cooldown on his Dark Meteor is. But you still have cooldowns that you have to work around, and then you do have to connect. Whereas Kai'Sa can just build items and right-click you into oblivion. And so what Brighton has tried to do to work around, you know, that potential deficit is they've picked up the Lucian, the Master Yi, and the Irelia. All three very adept attack damage style carries that don't necessarily have downtime. You know, they're constantly outputting damage. You can see how quickly the Irelia is trying to farm up these minions.
And you can see just that extended engagement coming out there from Letterman. It was actually knocked Seeker almost all the way down, but Letterman just has to fall back, burn her flash as well. Can't stick around for that one as we transition quickly back into the mid lane. Zarenfear is going to pick up Andy on the Lucian, just not quite able to find the sustain. Of course, so explosive on both ends, but Seeker coming out marginally ahead there. Almost got that takedown on the top lane.
Yeah, definitely not expecting the barrier there. I caught myself a little surprised by it as well because I had noticed the teleport and just kind of assumed that the yellow box was Flash. But I mean, very interesting decision there from the York, who is traditionally not a very mobile champion. But I guess it works out. It does survive him in the top side.
Oh, but here we go. This is going to be the gank coming in the bot lane as Master Yi will jump in and try and find a pick. He actually does pick up Camacho initially, but Cufflinks will turn it right back around. And Clark, they're just immediately going to punish. Zeren picks up another. It is a 2-for-1 for Clark. They do get that roam from the mid lane. And just how quickly that fight turns around.
And what an exquisite display of teamwork, realistically. We saw the engagement coming in. Amazing black shield coming out of Cufflinks onto Camacho there, making sure that the Pyke wasn't able to get the stun onto Kai'Sa. And then the instant double teleport coming in from Zarenfer and Seeker. That is communication down to a T. Zero hesitation showing there.
Was a beautiful setup, and they do ultimately get that trade 2-for-1, so they turn it around, but still so much presence across the entire map here for Clark. They do have to be careful though. This Pyke is roaming towards that mid lane, but it is being caught out. You can see those pings, and well,
Oh no.
oh goodness. Right as I was talking about that mid lane roaming, well, you saw the action there on the Rift Herald.
Yeah, they actually stole the Herald away, which is so huge. All of that work being put in by Lucas there. In the end, it doesn't even matter. And he's forced to get his flash burned just to stay alive. But now we're going to have to see what HP Destroyer can do with that Herald. You know, he does need to get some sort of use out of it, even though the steal enough is probably pretty good.
It's certainly a morale boost as well. You know, you have that, you know, that dynamic play where you know, maybe you shouldn't have gotten it, but you managed to steal it away. So you can turn the game a little bit on its head here. We'll see where that Herald potentially gets dropped into which lane, but yeah, that's always an exciting one to watch when you see that play, you know, developing right there with the Rift Herald. All of a sudden, oh nope, I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, never feels good getting your objective stolen away. However, being that it was a 2v1, sometimes you just have to take that. But I mean, I'm still very interested by this top lane. It's just a very common top lane for my solo queue games. But I mean, it's a different matter entirely to see it in a competitive setting. You know, Yorick, this champion that can be very snowbally, you know, has a lot of opportunity to really push the envelope in these lanes, trying to get ahead. And, you know, now that it has a controllable minion in the ultimate, really kind of spiked the champion's power level.
And that lane's been relatively quiet as the blue team will take the dragon. And here we go, there's going to be a huge fight as a result of it. Already Conflict burning all the summoners in the playbook there, but ultimately will get dropped there by HP Destroyer on that Master Yi. Clark will lose too, and the dragon, that Infernal Drake, of course, going the way of Brighton. As now we take a look back at the top lane, it's just going to be an all-in here from Lerner, trying to get Seeker down, but he will not drop. Finally, just at the very last second, managing to secure that, and that's huge for that Aurelia in that top lane.
Big flash out of the Kaisa as well. And yet, oh no, non-stop action once again.
So difficult to cover as we can see these sprawling engagements really across the entire Rift. All the lanes, of course, going at each other at the same time. It always happens, really. You know, you try to cover one play and it just quickly transitions into the next as, you know, HP Destroyer is just going to help his team defend that mid turret. Want to try and stave off those gold plates from Zarin there, but yeah, huge plays across the board. But I do think the biggest victory there for Brighton was having Aurelia actually get that takedown on the top lane. She was a little bit behind. I wasn't sure if that Yorick was going to get out of control, but she manages to turn it around there.
Yeah, I mean, being able to pick up the solo kill in that matchup, along with having the ultimate out already from Seeker, is very huge and, like you said, a very big morale boost, but it also ensures that it could happen again. You can already see the Blade of the Ruin King almost being completed by Lerner, whereas Seeker has been now forced into a more defensive, you know, build order. You know, still has the Sheen and, you know, the double longsword setting up for the next item.
Oh, but here we go. He's going to get a little bit of help, and Aurelia, well, she will just about get one, but will ultimately be an even trade, of course. That gank coming through on the top side will cost the Jarvan his life there. It is an even trade in the top lane, but now it is just Seeker looking to press that all the way in.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you see an Aurelia start getting ahead, is your top laner calls for assistance, you try and get, you know, the gank in there, but all of a sudden, you know, she's too strong, she's stronger than you thought she was, and then she's able to take down, you know, your jungler after just a couple spells. And so now, even though, you know, the Aurelia is starting to get pretty big, you know, has some gold behind her, losing out on these turrets plates is so massive, because it really puts the Yorick back on equal footing, even additionally with the 30 CS lead as well.
And in fact, he'll actually go through and knock down that whole turret. But Lerner looking to punish perhaps an overextension. She's just going to go right back into it. Aurelia saying, absolutely no way, I'm just going to take you right back down. That is pure revenge from Lerner. As, oh, look at this. It's going to be the re-engagement here. Oh, Zarin has to flash away. The fallen flash from Lerner is just going to try and go in.
Oh no!
Zarin will pick up one and will ultimately not quite trade Master Yi, of course, providing the ultimate support there at the end. And that's your fireworks show. Oh, here we go in the mid lane as well, as Morgana will actually just pick up the binding and will allow her teammate, well, I thought she was going to give that one up, but maybe not. Give her credit. Cuffwit's finding the pick there in the mid lane.
Yeah, lots of things to unpack there. Lurder not having the Blade Surge there right at the end available to get the Cassiopeia means that they are taken down in return. Luckily, they do get the trade from HP Destroyer, giving a massive shutdown amount over to the Master Yi as well, which is really impactful. Like I said earlier, this champion is just the yardstick by which we determine who wins or loses, because once this champion gets going, it is incredibly difficult to deal with, especially with the two main forms of crowd control available to the Clark High School squad, being the Morgana and the Cassiopeia. If Master Yi can avoid both of those, then he's in for a really good time.
Well, and you can see here as Lurder will just go right back in on Seeker, just absolutely ruthless on the top line. Ultimately, HP Destroyer will find that pick on that Master Yi, and man, that has to be so demoralizing for Seeker. He was playing that lane so well, but every single time he has stepped up now, he has lost his life to that Aurelion.
Which is why the barrier pick is very odd. Typically, you run the flash so you can avoid situations like this. The barrier is great in the 1v1. We already saw how effective it can be. But in these multiple man engagements that Brighton have been bringing to the table, it's very difficult to find yourself escaping that without, the hard summoner spell.
Certainly be a problem there, as Clark will actually pick up that Drake, and here's going to be the follow-up engagement from Brighton. They're going to try and see if anybody is still lurking around. They ultimately cannot aggress the whole way, so Clark will pick that one up cleanly. And this is about as even as a game as you're going to get. Take a look at across the top of the scoreboard there. We're basically straight up even the whole way through.
Yeah, we're at 2 takedowns a minute. Only 16 minutes into the game, and looking at the gold here, we can see a bit of an advantage in the mid lane. That is to be expected on a 4-1 Cassiopeia. However, it's equaled and mirrored by the enemy jungler of the Master Yi, having essentially an equal advantage over his direct opponent as well. So we can see that things are really going to be spicing up as these items continue to come in. And as the game plans start to evolve from the two squads, who decides to play around their hypercarrier better? Is it Zrenfer on the Cassiopeia, or is it HP Destroyer on the Master Yi? Who effectively is going to win the game for their team?
You certainly have a few different options. I also like that Aurelia pick on the top lane to be a carry there. As here we see an engagement in this jungle as... Oh, look at that. Luca's just going to hop right in on the back of that Morgana Q. But here comes the re-engagement. A big shutdown there on the Cassiopeia, finding Master Yi. And here we go again. It's a triple. And oh my goodness. That is the impact play that you wanted from Zrenfer on that Cassiopeia, finding 3 in the jungle.
Yeah, and that's how dangerous a fed Cassiopeia can be. One play, all of a sudden you lose 3 members to your team, and now your base is about to be imploded. And, we saw how much damage the Yi could output when given a chance, but it simply wasn't enough. We saw the Black Shield come in. The Cassiopeia just simply had more friends in the area than the Master Yi did. And so by the time his friends finally did decide to show up, they were funneled in one by one into this very tight corridor, which is really where Clark High School's team excels. Lots of linear skill shots, lots of, AoE abilities that really, really take advantage of, everybody being super clumped together.
That is, of course, the danger as well when you have these team compositions with no real front line to it. There's not a ton of tankiness built into that Brighton squad, so when they have their engagement pressed upon them, it becomes problematic to say the least. And yeah, now you look at that Cassiopeia, 7-1-1, huge bounty on her already, and it's just going to become terrifying.
It's actually her second bounty of the game as well. The first one had been collected by the Master Yi in the top side, but having a really difficult time to see where they take that bounty once more as these items continue to pile in. We have a completed, Seraph's Embrace. It's going to give her a massive shield when needed, backing it up with a Rylai's Crystal Scepter and the Haunting Guys, which is just HP on HP. The stopwatch there means that the Zonias is on the list today as well.
Well, and you can just see the damage output is so high from Zeren simply stepping up and finding that one. And here goes Cuffwoods as well. We'll find that binding there. Oh, Morgana will go gold though, trying to let her teammate go in the re-engage. Oh, it is a beautiful jump over the wall. Seeker will find one. A flash away from no good. Camacho picks up the other. The turret will fall and it is up to Lerner. 1v4 there at the moment to protect that base. But look at the Master Yi. Is this about to turn into a base race? Looks like you might get shut down by the Jarvan there. But that will be the inhib for Brighton. So, or almost. Let's see it.
Had the charge from the Herald come out, that definitely would have been a secured inhibitor. Very great stun there coming in from Zernfer to be able to take out the Master Yi as well and stop the game-ending push there. But overall, definitely more worth for Clark High School.
Yes, absolutely. They were able to build a ton of pressure there as well. Oh, but Camacho has to be careful. He's got to get away from Lerner. But, just managed to do so. That could have been rather disadvantageous there, to say the least. And I do have to give a ton of credit there to HP Destroyer on that Master Yi, just creating a huge problem there. It forced the teleport right away from Zera, and probably their strongest player at this point on Clark. So once you forced Zeren to recall there to defend that, you at least staved off defeat for the moment.
Yeah, you get one more opportunity to make a big team fight happen. Right now, this is only the third Drake of the game. I definitely don't think this is the... Alright. I was going to say, I don't think this is where you stake your game on. But with an almost huge pick onto the Jarvan there, it definitely seemed like it could have been. But right now, it's so early in the game with no big objectives outside of the Baron being available. It's actually a really big move right now for Brighton to be able to take advantage of these super minions. You're constantly going to be having the wave pushed into you, so there's no chance of a freeze denying you, CS and, the golden experience to go along with it.
Oh, here we go. A little bit of a chase through the jungle there. Clark, of course, looking to set up around that Baron. They're clearing out the vision, establishing a presence there in that river. As you can see, that was nearly a dangerous binding there onto Dinosaur Chainsaw. Have to be careful against those Morgana Qs. They will catch you out. And look at the presence here from Clark. My goodness, they are not allowing Brighton any sort of forward push.
Oh no.
Well, and that's what we talk about with that Morgana bind. Once it lands, it's stuck forever, and well, Zeren will absolutely take that one, no doubt about it.
Yeah, things are quickly getting out of control for Brighton. They need to staunch, the bleed. They need to make sure that they can stay alive in the game. Give their Veigar more time to scale. Give their Master Yi more time to scale. Right now, the Aurelia is also scaling pretty effectively, being able to take a lot of these trades.
Oh goodness, look at the aggression here from Clark underneath that tower, just absolutely nowhere to go there. Was that Veigar trying to stave off that top tower, and well, did not go well.
And he is the main source of wave clear available to his team right now, so he does need to be where the push is. He just needs to be a bit more, a bit safer about what he decides to wave clear against. Having the Morgana there means, double trouble basically, because that Jarvan's right behind that binding.
And well, look at this, here we go. It's going to be a huge engagement here. Clark, they waited and waited for their shot. They finally got someone to overextend. It isn't even 1-for-1 there as they look to make that play happen. Oh, but look at this. Zeren's just caught in that dark circle there from Veigar. Ultimately Brighton won't step out and capitalize, but Clark are in sort of an interesting position here. They're very pushed up, but they can't seem to develop all that pressure. They're getting picks. I think what they're going to do now, and it looks like they're headed this way, I think they're looking for that Baron to try and set up that extra bit of push they need.
Yeah, I mean, there's super minions in the base. They have the teleport advantage for the next couple seconds on these top laners. Seeker having it, whereas Lurderman does not. They do decide to back off. They had a ton of gold to spend after their, excursion into the top side there. So it does make sense. Get the items, get a little bit more boost before, trying to fight at the Baron pit. Now that you have, 2 items on the Kaisa, 3 on the Cassiopeia, 2 on the Morgana, excuse me. You can force things now.
Well, and you can see Seeker there in that bottom lane trying to force things against the Aurelia, but not quite able to get a full combo, so he'll just wait. But look at this. You can see sort of the positional battle developing in this jungle here. Zared wants to push forward and make something happen here for Clark.
There is no fear in the Cassiopeia. Like I said, 3.5 items now completed.
Oh, but here we go. HP Destroyer will actually just jump onto the Kaisa and take down Camacho. In fact, he'll set up Dinosaur Chainsaw to pick up 2. That's 2 clean picks for Brighton, and it's going to force the rotation away from Clark here. Now, all of a sudden, in a little bit of an awkward spot,
yeah, very interesting.
To work on the Baron.
Yeah, that's a super interesting call to me. They had vision on the enemy team. They knew they were all down bottom. They think they have the damage to just rush this down, and it seems like they're going to. The question is, can they get out?
Well, you'll get those instant recalls. They do get 1 away as Clark show up to ruin the party, and Cufflin's, oh, good sidestep there from HP Destroyer, but he still has a long way to go. Now Cufflin's burning that ultimate on the Morgana, and ultimately will catch up to HP Destroyer. He has to turn around and try something, but it's no good. He will be shut down. But ultimately, I think you take that if you're Brighton, right?
100% if you're Brighton. You were able to pick up 2 takedowns in the mid lane, instantly traded for the Baron, along with only losing your jungler, so you still have the Baron available on 4 members. It's going to give you so much more ability to defend your base. Your minions are now buffed up, heading into the storm against the opposing team. It makes pushing into the base a lot more difficult. They do end up taking the Earth Dragon as well for Clark High School, which kind of evens it out a little bit, since it does put them on soul point and really make sure that the next dragon fight is the fight. Because if you give Dragon Soul to this Clark High School squad, they're going to be so tanky.
Oh goodness, and Zarin just gets caught down. That is a huge shutdown there. Zarin a little overextended in the enemy jungle. Just got jumped on, also burned the flash, and lost life in the process. That is a big turning point for this Brighton team.
Yeah, Dinosaur Chainsaw making the big call there to, say we can do this. We can take out the Cassiopeia as long as she's alone. Going for the big hook and actually landing it on top too, which obviously makes the difference. And so now they're getting this huge push in on the mid lane. They're going to get 2 towers at least out of it. And this Baron power play has been massive for this team.
Yes, they're absolutely capitalizing here. As you can see, another fight breaking out here in the mid lane. Here comes the regression from Clark High School. They're going to try and pick it first in the bottom lane, but Cufflets will actually go down to HP Destroyer, who continues to push it on the Orc as well. He's going to go right by the turret and right in there. Earns the shutdown onto him as well. He has to get out of there and lose the aggression. And all of a sudden, here come Brighton.
It seems we've hit the Master Yi portion of the broadcast. He is just taking away every opportunity and taking every mile for the inch he's given. How many takedowns are we going to see from people running at him and not respecting the damage? We only have armor being built onto 4 of the 5 members of Clark High School. So, it's not like they're not trying to itemize against this Brighton squad. They are. They're doing what they can. but without the Cassiopeia there to stop this Master Yi, and the Dark Binding only being every so often, it's so difficult to try and stop this Master Yi from just doing whatever he can. And at that fight there, we saw them burn everything onto the Aurelia, trying to make sure that she was the catch out when everybody tried to transition onto the Kaisa. But once she didn't go down, it then opened up the window for HP Destroyer to just run right through everybody there.
And it is, of course, a massive, massive play. It can't really be overstated. Clark was almost at a position really to end this game. They had knocked down that middle inhibitor. They were pushing all the way into the base, but they sort of stalled out. They lost that Baron, and then you see that huge pick onto Zeren in the jungle, and now all of a sudden Brighton's really back in it. It's just a question of how much can they sustain the push, and can they box Clark in enough to actually end up taking this game. You feel like the next team fight is of the utmost importance.
Yeah, I mean, we could potentially see this game end within the next 3 minutes simply due to this massive dragon fight we're going to be seeing. Like I said, this Earth Soul, so important for the team.
Ooh, and that's a big escapability there for Lucas on that Jarvan, and he'll actually be forced to flash over the wall as well. He ran into some danger in the jungle. He does survive, but it is the cost of his flash, and he will be forced on the recall as well.
Yeah, and what we said 15 minutes ago still stands. This game is still on whoever's hyper carry can stay alive. If the Master Yi gets caught by a Morgana binding, then it's game over. Whereas the Cassiopeia gets hooked in, she's going to have 2 opportunities to survive. The initial one before the Zhonya's, and then whatever she can get done after the Zhonya's. In either of those openings, it's all up to Brighton to just take her out of the fight, and from there, as long as your Master Yi is still alive, you should win from then on.
It sounds simple when you put it that way, but not as easy in practice. We'll see, of course, who can execute to the best of their ability. We're over 30 minutes into this game, and we're pretty much airtight now, as we can see the position of both teams around the center of the map, trying to see who finds that avenue of escape, who finds that opening to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's everybody's waiting for the dragon to spawn. As soon as that dragon's alive, these two teams are going to fight. You can see Kaisa, in that bottom lane, trying to get that wave pushing.
In fact, Morgana almost caught someone being a little too ambitious with the vision there, as this is an interesting call here.
I definitely don't agree with this. Earth Soul is too impactful because it not only gives you that giant shield, that is 3 Earth Dragons. That is so many resistances that you've just given up to the enemy team in order for a temporary passive buff. So they do trade Soul for Baron, and what that tells me is that they don't feel confident taking the fight. They do not feel confident trying to beat this Clark High School squad in a 5v5 fight. They want this Master Yi to be able to split push down a side lane, break the 1-3-1, and hope that their 3 in the middle don't just get overrun.
That is a very bold tactical move if they manage to execute on it. And you can see what's going to happen here in a moment is that when those allied minions for Brighton, when they catch that Baron buff, they're going to be able to stave off the push from Clark. The question is for how long? As you mentioned, it is only a temporary buff. It does expire, and they have to capitalize on it as much as they can. You can see the Master Yi and the Aurelia now, they're splitting through both the mid lane and the top lane. They're going to try and push this, and this may just become a base race very quickly.
Yeah, this is a 100% opportunity for a base race. Master Yi is instantly going to delete this middle inhibitor, and then he'll be able to potentially go for the back. He does need to contest with the Cassiopeia, who just completed the teleport back, but for now, he's going to take that inhibitor, probably transition topside if given the opportunity.
Oh, but this is problematic. Kaisa earning the shutdown there onto the pike, and now all of a sudden down a member. Brighton have to be very careful. They do have allied super minions spawning in the mid lane, so that'll save them some time, but Oh, goodness. Here we go again. Master Yi essentially trying to 1v3 there. But HP Destroyer, he's so massive. He doesn't go down. And he follows through on it as well. And Brighton find 2 picks there in the jungle. What an unbelievable turnaround right there.
Yeah, I mean, they had full vision on the Master Yi. They had him on the control ward there that he just ended up clearing in the pixel bush. And so they tried to set up a little Fnatic bush for him. They tried to bait him into, his doom, but he's able to survive through the burst damage between the 2 champions there. And once that's done, he's just going to run right through you. He does so much damage. He's already back down in this bottom lane trying to get the inhibitor. He just has to survive the Cassiopeia damage because he's going to trade his life for it. But that's a big objective being taken. That's now 2 inhibitors taken down by this Baron buff. And, the Master Yi is not as indestructible as his scoreline reads, but it's just some interesting interactions that he's getting across the map where he can get 1v2'd or 1v2s in his favor instead of finding the Cassiopeia that really ruins his day.
This has almost become a game of chess in the end, but all of a sudden now here comes the problem right at this point in the game. Spawn timers become so elongated. That Master Yi is still down for about another 15 seconds or so. And when he's not around, that Brighton team, they don't want to fight without him present because you need him to, to be that scaling hyper carry. So when he's not around, Clark have the advantage. And with the respawn timers, so elongated at this point in the game, it really will most likely come down to who makes the first mistake and who can get the picks onto those hyper carries.
And the ball is definitely in Clark's court for exactly what we just saw there, which is that flag and drag. With the flash available, that combo can clear almost 2 full screens once you throw in the Cataclysm on top as well, which, with how tanky this Jarvan has become, he'll survive almost any engagement he begins as long as the Master Yi is not the one chipping away at him solo. If he only has to deal with Pyke, Lucian, Aurelia, and Veigar, he's going to be just fine. He'll flag drag Cataclysm all day of the week, and an opportunity to set up for his Kai'Sa Cassiopeia to take, take everyone down. If that's all it takes, because as soon as this Master Yi shows up in the top side, because there's nowhere else for him to go right now, that's the go button. That is when you tell Lucas on the Jarvan, trap somebody. Trap Veigar, trap Aurelia, just do something and we'll take care of the rest. Because once you take those down, like you said, because of these long death timers, what do if you're Brighton at that point? You're now down 45, 50 seconds, where Master Yi, yes, he might, get another objective on the top side, but with teleport being available for the York, he'll be able to get back to the base in time to stop a true end to the game.
So many questions to be answered yet, as we're almost now at 40 minutes in this game. And here's the interesting part. Elder Soul's coming up roughly 30 seconds. Baron in about another 45. If you're Brighton, do you take that same trade again? Clark right now is positioning for this dragon. They need the soul. I don't think that at this point you can give it to him.
I mean, they already have the soul. Right now what they're fighting for is that Elder Drake with the 20% finisher damage on top of everything else they have in the kit. When you look at that as Cassiopeia, you're licking your lips because you get everybody so low, so fast, and so any engagement that you now take that potentially is awkward.
Oh, and here we go. This is a huge engagement on the top side. Cufflinks has to go golden against Lurder here, who's just going to push in, and he does actually manage to pick up the kill, a flash away, and he actually sidesteps the York as well. It's going to be a chase. Oh! And Brighton has taken the dragon. That is absolutely massive for them. A shutdown, top side, and bottom as well. All of a sudden, it's Brighton clearly in the driver's seat. They might be able to end this game off that play alone.
Yeah, I mean, they still need to fight through the Cassiopeia, but Master Yi's just running at it.
Lurder will go down on Camacho, but Camacho turns around. Zarin has to go golden, burning the zombies. HP Destroyer is taking shots from that turret. He will flash back in on Zerder, and the shutdown comes through for Master Yi onto the Cassiopeia. Andy's taking down the middle inhibitor. Vigar's going to follow it up. Brighton so close here.
Yeah, I mean, they still
Can
have
Clark
15.
hang on?
That should be game. There's no way for Kaiser Morgana to defend against this kind of push.
Wow, I'm actually legitimately at a loss for words. That was unbelievably executed by Brighton there. You have that split push right by the Aurelia going top. You draw out the 2v1, and oh my goodness, such an incredible job. One, to stay alive. Two, to draw the attention where they can then immediately transition onto that Elder and just completely turn that game upside down. Wow, I'm actually legitimately speechless. That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we expect from a Master Yi composition. You know, the difficulty there was that Master Yi wasn't the only solo AD champion that would be able to split push effectively against the Yorick. You know, we saw the Aurelia go top, was winning the trades, you know, was dodging out on the swinging mist from the Yorick, which means she wasn't losing a lot of HP. The sustain between Conqueror and Blade of the Rune King made it really difficult for Yorick to 1v1 that. So once the Morgana went top, that was the key. That was when Brighton is able to go, we can fight for the dragon, we can claim it as our own, and they ended up doing that. And then with the finisher damage from the dragon, they're really able to just finish off the fights. You saw how quickly Aurelia was to turn around onto the Yorick at that point, and then when you have Master Yi on the other side, what do you do at that point? He chunks through your health bar so fast with the true damage in his kit that it's nearly impossible to prevent the execute from coming through when it's 20%. Like, you only have to lose, 800 out of 1,000 damage, and he does that in 2 auto attacks.
Such an amazing performance from Brighton there. I truly think they took the phrase, "Don't worry, we scale," to heart there. They managed to turn that game into their favor, into a game 1 victory. But ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Coming up next, we will have game number 2 of this best of 3. I cannot wait for it, but we're going to take a short break. Don't worry, we'll be back here in just a moment.
I think a lot of students have just gotten another sense of how to belong and how to create relationships outside of what were the traditional avenues.
And a lot of my students talk about how they feel safe in the esports program, and that's their family, that's their community. And I think the esports gives kids a future that they might otherwise not have.
Man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school.
There is a stereotype for women in video games. A lot of people tend to think that we're not very good. Sometimes the male players get a little snarky, and sometimes I do have to put them in their place. 1v1 me, bruh. Come at me. I was bullied relentlessly in school, so video games became my escape. And eventually I started entering tournaments and making a name for myself. A lot of people thought it was a joke, but I was really excited. I went before our Board of Education and presented the case for esports. We talked about the benefits of playing video games. You build teamwork, critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, communication. These are skills that companies are now looking for. And also, I brought up the child that won $3 million in Fortnite and discussed how students had a future with esports if they could win money and go to college on scholarships. We made an announcement 2 days after the board approved, and I had about 450 students show up, and it was a little overwhelming to think about how am I going to teach students how to play this very complex game. There are a lot of different types of students in my program, and I have a lot of students who say, they come to school for esports. They know that they need to do well in class. Otherwise, their teacher will call me and I will come up to their classroom and sit in that class and make sure that they're doing what they need to do. A lot of them are now maybe at B's when earlier they were at C's or D's. I had a student graduate last year. He told me that he was going to drop out, that he didn't like school. School wasn't for him, and then we announced esports, and that's kind of what saved him, and he graduated, and now he's in college. That meant a lot to me. I tear up a little bit every time I think about that child. Every school really does need an esports program, simply because, in my personal experience, a lot of these kids that play esports, for various reasons, they can't play a physical sport. But esports is just, it's online, it's at the school, it gives students a place where they can feel safe and they belong, because back in the day when esports and video games weren't mainstream, you were bullied relentlessly for it. And a lot of my students talk about how they feel safe in the esports program, and that's their family, that's their community. Being an esports coach means to me that I have a huge responsibility to these 65 children that are in this program. Despite the fact that I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, they are counting on me to give them guidance in this game so they can win and go to playoffs. It's more than just being a coach, it's being there for students who might not have anybody who's normally there for them. It's about encouraging them, loving them, and showing them that you can do something like this and be good at it and go off and have a future.
Overwhelmingly, the support has been there with, man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school. I guess it was last fall, some of the students were starting to go, hey, can we get a gaming club going? And then word came down that our athletic director was looking for someone to coach esports. And I said, this is something that's right up my alley. You know, I've always been in tune with the geek kids, you know, the geeks, the nerds, whatever. That's my scene. That's what I was in high school. I mean, I've done it all. I've done computer-based stuff. I played World of Warcraft for about 10 years. 360s in the house right now. The main thing that I did to help find interested students is I told all of my classes, if you have friends who are interested, please send them this way, that anybody can join. I'm not gonna limit this. For our first season playing, we have come in at approximately 23 kids. I've got one full League of Legends team. I've got 3 Rocket League teams. That's where we started at, and I'm looking forward to it growing. To get started in this, it was let me learn about the games that are out there. Let me see what I need to figure out. And then I figured out that the kids are gonna know more than I ever will. The opportunity for any kid to be skilled at something and be able to have the chance to pass that knowledge on. To look at somebody else and go, hey, I realize I'm not gonna be here for more than a couple of years and we want this team to keep doing well. Let's get your skill up so that you can take my spot. Absolutely, that's part of giving the kids that bit of ownership in the sport. This is the first time we've done this at our school. How much of a legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to be the guy that's helping bring the next generation here at the school along, or are you going to be the one who's like, no, I'm the best and I don't want anybody else to challenge me? When I've got my lead for League of Legends going, okay, we're invading here, I'm marking the point, everybody get here, they're learning how to really work together and develop their skills that they're going to be able to use the rest of their lives. Here's your place where you can come in and be part of a team. Esports gives that kid who is a gamer that chance to be involved in the school and maybe help them develop more school pride than what they've had. They can say, hey, I was part of this. And that they now have the opportunity to letter in it gives them a reason to go out and say, hey, you know, maybe I do want to buy that Letterman's jacket. Maybe I do want to build some memories about high school that will last and be worthwhile. Ultimately, being a coach is opening doors for students to find their way to belong in a school that they don't have through any other means. So let's grow it. Let's make the school a more welcoming place for everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the desk here on Play Versus. Doctor, we had a few minutes there to take a break and think about game one and what might happen in game two. And honestly, I think I'm still at a loss for words. That was just an incredible turnaround from Brighton in that game.
Yeah, I mean, that was anybody who's ever played solo queue knows exactly that feeling when you get the lead, you're doing everything right, you get the Dragon Soul, and you're feeling really, really good about your chances of this game. And then all of a sudden you hit tab, you're looking down the enemy scoreboard, and you see Master Yi has 5 kills. And you're like, all right, that's doable. We can work with this. And then all of a sudden, the number just starts going up and up and up. And then you lose an inhibitor, and you're like, okay, wait, we still got this. We got the shield. We're good. And then you lose another inhibitor, and you're like, oh, no. Oh, no, oh, no. Things are starting to not go so well. And then you finally try and shut down the split pusher in Aurelia, and all of a sudden, you get your Elder Dragon stolen. And at that point, you're like, well, I did everything I could. It's time for Master Yi to have his turn on the computer. And when he gets it, he is not letting go.
No, he certainly did not let go at the end there. It's so difficult to process because the problem is, okay, in a solo queue game, right? You say, okay, fine, GG, go next. But this is still the best of 3. So it's the same opponents, it's the same school, it's exactly the same setup. Now you are going to get a shot here in the ban phase, which will be coming up shortly. You'll probably change a couple things, and we'll see here. But you have to just reset and, mentally say, okay, we can still do this. Obviously, it was there for the taking, right? You need to do it here in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if that game is exactly the same, just no Master Yi, that is 100% going Clark High's way. They had every advantage. They got the Dragon Soul. Yeah, they lost the Barons, but you can get away without having to take Baron. Like, there's chances and opportunities to win a game without the big purple worm, and they had the Dragon Soul, which is definitely one of them. And right away, they recognize the problem. They ban away the Master Yi. I'm curious if they still picked the Cassiopeia. It was a very fantastic pick for their mid laner, though. It worked out very effectively. Took a very early lead, ran away with it in the Lucian matchup. Brighton High, they have one more ban left, so I am curious what they decide to spend it on, with the Pike actually being banned away by Clark High as well.
That's an interesting one there for the Pike, and we see that last ban come through for Brighton. It is the Wukong, so as you mentioned, the Cassiopeia is still open, and that, they managed to get pretty far riding the back of that Cassiopeia in that game. It just wasn't quite enough to get them over the line. As you mentioned, the Master Yi is too much, but we see the first pick come out for Clark, and is that Xin Zhao jungle. So no Master Yi, no problem. There's your pick.
Yeah, Xin Zhao, very strong style jungler, lots of crowd control, lots of survivability when it comes to the PvE portion of the game. Does kind of fall off once it brings it into the PvP. Does heal on every 3rd auto attack, so it can be kind of high. But we see it being counterpicked away from the Mordekaiser and the Kayn, who's very, very high in the tier lists right now. And looking back at Clark High School, we see the Lee Sin pick, which really makes me curious about the Xin Zhao pick, because the Lee Sin makes me think that it's either a lane Lee Sin, which is not common in the slightest, or it's a lane Xin Zhao, which is also not common in the slightest. So I really don't know what to make of the draft so far.
Yeah, that's certainly a bold tactic here for Clark. They may be pulling something out of the bag. You are down in the series, right? And you do have to make changes. You know that Brighton are obviously going to try and target certain things that worked well. You can see, some of these bans coming through. I don't know where I don't know where either of those champions will go, but we will certainly find out when we get into the Rift. Here's an interesting, though, Vel'Koz in that mid lane there, perhaps over the Cassiopeia.
I've never seen a Vel'Koz lose, it feels like. It feels like every time I commentate this champion, they just pop off. They know the champion so well. The champion just does so much damage thanks to the 3-hit passive doing true damage. Some reliable CC. It's not point and click per se, but it is pretty easy to land, along with then, the geometry Q that everybody knows so well that can also... What is happening? I don't understand this team composition. It doesn't make any sense to me. But, Vel'Koz, super high damage, lots of crowd control, very strong pick in the mid lane, very, very resilient in the correct hands. But, the draft from Brighton High is so typical. It's so expected from what a good composition looks like, that when you look at Clark High's, you're just kind of left scratching.
Yes, this is certainly what you would consider non-standard. I wonder if they have an ace up their sleeve, so to speak. This is something to behold, really. I don't know. I love to see it. Again, I mentioned it before game one, right? You want to see teams go for things that are trying to win you the game. If this is what they think will do it, I'm okay with it. I don't know. I'm excited. It's something very different, no doubt.
Definitely something different. Definitely something that you're betting your state championship on right now, because this is match point for Brighton High. If they are able to secure the game with their standard composition, then they go home the state championship. They take the W, they take the trophy, they take the crown. And so you have to now make your patchwork composition be, all it can be. Because there is so much damage potential here. Xin Zhao can easily smash the Mordekaiser down the lane, through the lane, up the lane, whichever way he wants to go, along with every other champion pick selected. The two biggest issues I see coming out for Clark High School is the mid lane and the support in the bottom lane. Xerath is a very squishy mid lane mage. So when you are faced with a very high tempo, tanky, engaged support like Nautilus, it can be extremely difficult to find yourself get ahead. If you do manage to do that, then you are set for life. You can just run the lane. You're the CEO. You're the 99 level Mafia boss. You can just do whatever you want, but you have to get there first. Right now, he's a level 1... I don't know. Level 1, barmaid. I really don't know.
Well, at this point, you can't second guess it anymore. You're on the rift and ready to go as we, take a look across our lanes here, and it's fascinating, truly, as we see Dinosaur Chainsaw. This is the issue, right? He just steps up and he uses that dredge line, and he's gonna get Cufflets to burn the flash right away as we transition now into the top lane. Seeker is just going in on Murder, and he's so close, but he won't get it. The damage nearly there for Xin Zhao, but already explosive. It's going to force a return there for Lurder.
Yeah, having to go back to base this early on, you're going to be losing out on the experience and the gold of a good portion of minions. It doesn't seem like a lot to lose like 4 minions under your opponent, but right now we see a 7 CS 8. It's just going up. CS differential between the two top laners, and that is, as we can see on the two sides here, a full level. We have a level 2 Mordekaiser into a level 3 Xin Zhao, which means Xin Zhao has all of his abilities. Mordekaiser doesn't yet.
And you can see how problematic that is. Of course, Lurder burning that TP to get back into lane on time, but even now, still just pressed under his own tower. Seeker absolutely forcing the issue, still a level ahead. And he'll be trying to tear down as much as he can off those plates.
And we're just going to see this constant aggression coming out from Seeker on the Xin Zhao. He has absolutely zero reason to just, every time it's available, engage. Because every time he gets 3 auto attacks, he's going to heal up. It's not quite lifesteal built into his kit, because it is just a flat heal every 3 auto attacks. It's like a burst heal, but you will be picking up lifesteal items eventually as well.
And here we go into the mid lane. HP Destroyer is going to try and get that gank action going. Oh, and it's going to force the flash away for Lucas. Lee Sin not able to do anything. And he tries to follow up, but look at the ward hop. He simply disappears right out of the thin air. Zaren trying to follow up on Andy, who will get the first takedown as Fizz. And the turnaround, look at that from HP Destroyer. Brighton find 2 opening takedowns here, game number 2.
I thought that was going to go so much worse for Brighton than it was. I saw the Lee Sin and the Vel'Koz split paths, and then the Lee Sin land his Sonic Wave over the wall and come back to help his Vel'Koz, and I thought that was over. I thought that was going to be first takedown and all the money in the bank going over to Zarenfer and Lucas, but instead they get turned on, and I was like, all right, they trade 1 for 1, that's fine. And then Zarenfer lands the double knockup, and I was like, he gets both kills here. There's no way he doesn't get both kills here. But there was just not enough damage once those connected. And here we see Seeker just pressing E again. Nothing to lose. It's free real estate.
Because, well, of course, why not? If you're going to go in and you're going to make that pick work in the top lane, well, Seeker here proving us wrong, perhaps on the desk. He's illustrating, how this can be an effective matchup. But here's the problem again for Clark, right? Is that now you're down 0-2. Your jungler and your mid laner are the ones who get dropped, so they're going to be behind. Those are your impact players. But here we go. Brighton's going to answer with Dinosaur just coming in on that Nautilus. And Kane's going to be dipping into the bot lane as well. Camacho's just stuck. He's trying to pick up one. It will not happen. HP Destroyer is going to get cuff blitzed. Dinosaur is going to pick up Camacho. Oh, and here we go. The re-aggression from Clark will actually shut down HP Destroyer. So there is something to be salvaged here in the bot lane.
Yeah, really kind of awkward engagement there. Dinosaur Chainsaw really wanted to give the takedown over to his marksman Savage, but with how much early game damage Camacho can bring out on the Varus, really kind of a struggle for Kaisa to properly walk forward in that engagement. And so in the end, they do end up giving it over to the Nautilus, which kind of left HP Destroyer out to dry, having to go so deep to pick up the takedown onto Cufflets that there was so much time for Lucas and Zarenfer to make it down there and, trade it out.
Yes, you can certainly feel the impact of that here as well. Brighton, they'll just stay up. They will take the first dragon. It is the Ocean Drake going their way, so something to consider as well, especially with both the Nautilus and the Mordekaiser. Now you get that extra bit of sustain. Keep you alive in certain spots that you otherwise might not have.
I am curious why Mordekaiser is taking the Krugs from his own jungler. I understand he's behind, but I feel like they're sacrificing topside. I feel like the Kayn will not make an attempt top for quite a while in fear that the Xin Zhao can get going even further beyond.
Well, he may not have a choice.
At the expense of the jungler, because we can see here the jungler, going through the wall almost like he was expecting his Krugs to still be there, even though they've been taken by his top laner.
It is an interesting decision, but Brighton are still ahead. They still have a lead overall to work with, so an annoyance or a hindrance perhaps, but in the grand scheme of things, still in an advantageous position across the rift.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Mordekaiser before, always being a semi-relevant champion, especially due to his ultimate being able to send people to the Shadow Realm, really denying a lot of objective control when it comes to, eliminating the enemy opponent's smite. It'll be interesting to see how they play with that going forward, though. You know, the first Drake has already been taken down by Brighton.
Oh, goodness, look at that dredge line drop there from Dinosaur. It's going to force Cufflets to burn the flash, try and get away. Oh, but look at that! Vel'Koz will just pick up HP Destroyer on that Kane. It will come through, but here comes the re-aggression from Dinosaur, dropping the dredge line once again, but Cufflets has something to say about it, and Dinosaur just taking the turret, and Zared will pick it up on the Vel'Koz, make it 2 for him. Clark High School, well, that's the turnaround you're looking for.
Yeah, that was a lot of damage coming back at them. I mean, they definitely thought they had the advantage. Unfortunately, the Fizz ultimate did not connect, which definitely would have turned the tide. Great play, though, by Cufflets, being able to be there with the crowd control to make sure that the Nautilus wasn't able to escape from under the tower. And once that happened, it was just kind of easy pickings, because an immovable target is very easy to land skill shots on. And like I said, Vel'Koz does a lot of damage when you land everything.
Yes, he absolutely does it, and you certainly feel for Nautilus there too, right? When you land those dredge lines, you're like, okay, I'm landing the skill shot, I'm going in, here we go, and ultimately nothing comes of it for your team. It's of course one of those challenging parts of playing that support role, right? Where you land certain things, you land certain abilities, and you think it could be really positive, and then it just gets turned right back around on you. So tough sledding there for Nautilus.
However, he is a big, beefy sea boy. He will get back on his sea legs and be able to, start really putting the trouble to the enemy team. There will be a couple minutes. Dragon's in about a minute. That, I think, we'll see a engagement over. There's no reason not to. Right now, the teams are fairly even, especially due to the advantage that the Vel'Koz currently has. So we can see Seeker kind of transitioning down, into other portions of the map. Yes, he only cleared a ward and walked away, but the thought is there for him to join the team when it comes to this big objective. He hasn't gotten a ton out of this solo top lane crusade. He's gotten a single plate. Actually, I don't think he's even gotten a single plate. Yeah, it's still sitting at 5 plates at the top side. So for all of the CS advantage he's been gaining, Mordekaiser will just feel free to clear these waves over and over again. His EQ combo will full clear the backline of minions. And, oh no.
This is certainly problematic for HP Destroyer. Is going to be forced to burn a flash, and the Kane ultimate as well, trying to get away, but he will not. Lucas will pick that up there. Zared has gone golden to try and escape from Andy, and here we go. 3 members of Clark are just going to try and push that in. It forces Andy to burn his flash back at mid lane to stay alive. Fizz ultimately going back onto the tower, and now Clark, well, they will certainly make a move into the Dragon Pit here, at least clearing the vision and getting it started. With 4 members, this one's theirs for the taking, no doubt.
Yeah, taking down the enemy jungler almost always means a secure onto the dragon. Pretty close in that top side. Really tough for Lurder, even with the double cloth armors, to do much of anything there. We are going to be getting a Earth Soul once again, and this is huge. Yes, teleport's available, but we're going to get at least 1 plate here out of the top lane from Seeker, and with only a minute remaining on them, that's huge.
Yeah, so we'll get that extra burst of gold, and we see a huge fight breaking out down here in bot lane as Cufflets is solo, but Camacho, oh my goodness, he turns that around, he saves his support, and now they're turning right on Nautilus. Dinosaur use that dredge line to try and get away. Camacho with a flash, it will not get him close enough. I cannot believe Cufflets just survived.
Yeah, that's tough to see. You land everything, you do everything right, and unfortunately it's just not enough. Oh no. Oh,
this could be a problem though. That dredge line didn't connect, and Camacho is just going to try and go in on the Kane. Cufflets doesn't have the HP to step up though. Kane finding the level trade there for the bot lane. Oh, and Cufflets just harassing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you're preventing the opponent from backing, which eats up time. You ate up about 6 seconds of the original recall, which, without being able to complete means you need to spend another 8 seconds to recall again, which means that's a total of 15 seconds your jungler is not available on the map to do anything else. And looking at the map, we can see almost every single camp is available for HP Destroyer, who, you know, hasn't taken it yet. There's chances for counter jungling here, and you can see you could have seen the pings go there onto the enemy red buff. Xin Zhao running down saying, yes, please, thank you, please. I will gladly take this from you and harass your top laner for the rest of the game.
Well, that's something that, you know, a Xin Zhao is very accustomed to in the sense of taking the buff there, but in this off-meta top lane role, it certainly will help him out against Lurder here, who's, you know, as we've talked about it, this Mordekaiser's really been staying in the game. Up, you know, zeros across the board there in the top lane. Nobody really finding much action on anyone, but never mind. Here we go into the bottom lane. Once again, HP Destroyer is having a second go here at this bottom lane, and it will be Camacho found out of position. It will be Brighton picking one up there, and, well, that's why if you're the Kane, you go bot side. Try and help your laners out.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. We saw how much the Dark Harvest really burnt out the damage there as well. Really troubling to try and deal with that from a receiving end, because you never can really, you know, place the damage. Like, yes, you know you got hit by a Dark Harvest stack, and it hurt. But, you know, every single stack he gets means it's going to do more damage the next time. So it can be very difficult to keep track of that. And when you are on, you know, an assassin-y style champion, you know, you definitely lose track of the damage because it stacks up so quickly. And, you know, we can see just tons of lethality coming in now, but we're seeing the wave clear from Mordekaiser finally giving him some, you know, breathing room.
Oh, and here we go. This is just the individual matchup here as Seeker is just trying to step away from Lurder, and he'll flash right over into the alcove at the top side, but here comes the follow-through from the rest of Clark High School. They're going to bail Seeker out here and at least push this Mordekaiser off his spot. Can they take him down? The damage does come out. Lurder will fall, and oh my goodness, here comes HP Destroyer. He's going to get caught out on his own as well. Now back into the bot lane, Camacho trying to put some damage out onto Dinosaur here. Look at him go, just auto attack, but Dinosaur will just step up and nearly just, no, it's so close. Zeren under the ignite will just get to those plants and survive. Oh my goodness, Brighton, that's disastrous.
Just action is the name of the game. Really tough to see when, you know, oh no, really tough to see that.
Andy going to fall to cufflets there. Zereth finding, well, the last member at that point up for Brighton, and wow, that was just a complete turnaround. It sort of happened over time there. It was, oh, HP Destroyer is just going to go in and pick up 2. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we get the blue Kane coming out, not the standard one even. A lot of times we see more Rost. He's going to end up going down here more than likely. He even threw out the control ward trying to keep himself safe, but it was on the wrong side or too late, depending on how you want to look at it. But the Shadow Assassin Kane, not super common. It is what you gain from auto-attacking ranged champions. And you saw how much time he spent on the bottom half of the map. It does have some interesting advantages over Rost, but typically most people will prefer the Rost ability set over it. You heal up a bit more, you have crowd control built into your kit, you do less damage overall, but you build a lot tankier. Like, you can see that all he has in his item stack right now is swords. Sword after sword after sword after sword after sword after sword.
Oh, and here we go. Brighton will pick up the dragon, but it's going to be a question of at what cost. Zeren picks up 1, looking to find more here. R. Clark. Camacho is on a killing spree. He gets another out of the Kaisa, and here we go, Seeker trying to find an advantage onto Andy, who's just moving quickly away. Brighton will fall back off. They do get their objective, but they lose 2 members of their team for it.
overall, it's hard calling that worth. They are going to lose a tower over it as well. They will lose multiple towers over it because they get the Rift Herald pop on the bottom side too.
And here we go. Clark High School just popping off right there. They actually managed to pick up a couple more takedowns. Someone just got, I think the Lee Sin just got dropped there. I'm not sure by what. However, Shelly does get popped to the bottom lane here, and now you can see this Clark High School team just moving through, trying to get as many charges as they can out of that Rift Herald.
Yeah, I mean, they can get a third charge out of it. That would be beyond massive.
Oh, Zeren goes absolutely massive on Vel'Koz, and it is the third charge. It is a tower to fall. A flash out there, double takedown for Vel'Koz. Can they continue forward? Andy actually picks up one on Zinjao. So they do manage to defend their base here at Brighton. But how exposed is that bottom lane now? Clark High School with pure unadulterated aggression. As HP Destroyer is just going to try and go back into the Cufflets, who narrowly escapes.
Yeah, I mean, this champion is so quick mobility-wise. Never really stops moving in a fight. Just really difficult to land skill shot crown control on. So, I mean, seeing the health bars go that low, it's always scary to witness. But man, everything just coming up Clark. They're playing super aggressive right now.
Oh, and that's that Zeracles who will actually just knock down HP Destroyer. They can see the rest of this Brighton squad perhaps lurking and trying to take advantage. I thought Clark may have been a little bit overextended there, but they do turn that around into another pick, so all of a sudden this has just become a bit of a slugfest.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what the game plan there. Oh no.
Oh, and Dinosaur Chainsaw just trying to get away, using that dredge line to create some movement. He'll use that flash as well, but Seeker is just going to simply step up, try and go for. Oh, great Aegis there. Oh,
that was an almost unfortunate blast cone. But it seems that Nautilus has now sacrificed his top laner in his name.
Seemingly, but Lurder, well, he's hanging around still for a moment.
He's kind of a big beefy boy. Does have the Bramble Vest and the Ninja Tabby, so he will survive for a little bit. Not too long though.
This is certainly entering problematic territory here for Brighton. You can see just how far pushed up Clark High School are. They're absolutely taking this one to them as they see HP Destroyer there is just going to get rooted to the spot. And Camacho will take credit, but Zaren's Vel'Koz just outputting a ton of damage there.
Yeah, I mean, the composition they've put together with the Xerath, Varus, Vel'Koz combination is basically an Aram composition, right? Like, if you load up an Aram and you see those three champions, you know you're in for a bad time. And, you know, the presence still sticks through. You know, they have the Xin Zhao and the Lee Sin to frontline and be annoying in their own right. And that whole time they exist, you're just having to dodge arrows and void orb and electricity. And it's just so difficult to really keep your eyes on top of everything because the screen is so busy, especially once Vel'Koz starts throwing out all of the abilities. It's messy. And so now, you know, with those picks going over to Clark, they're going to be able to pick up the Baron as well.
Yes, they do march on here, Clark High School. I think this game has been so fascinating in the sense that really Brighton haven't had a true chance to actually really team fight when they've been picked. It's just been a lot of 2v2, 1v1, and then trying to re-aggress back in, and Clark has just turned it around on them every single time. It hasn't really been one team fight. It's just been a constant, almost bleeding out of champions just going in and not surviving.
Yeah, and the problem is that, you know, their biggest tank, the Mordekaiser, isn't even a true tank again, and oh man, so much damage.
And well, Lucas will simply drop Savage there. Clark are in such a good position. You just saw them take that dragon there as well, so they do pick up a mountain drink to add to their infernal, and now all of a sudden they've got 5 members mid with a Baron buff and another dragon behind their back. How much can Brighton do to stop it? They are a Kaisa down. It will be the middle inhibitor, it's just how much more.
Play will definitely be to get both inhibitors, unless they bet it all on one final engage.
And here we go. Andy will go in, but it is not enough. Puppet shuts it down. Vel'Koz pops the old Zaren fears. Unstoppable Seeker finds another. Learner Man is doing everything that he can. It would force Zaren to go golden. He does earn the shutdown, and he actually pulls in Camacho as well. Make it 2. All of a sudden, Learner, he's just not going down. He's still alive. Still alive. Dodging skill shots, and finally the ace for Zareth. And that will be the game for Clark High School. Evening this one up. Just under 25 minutes of gameplay. GG's in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, game 3 is on the cards.
Yeah, I mean, just such a dominant run back. I mean, we saw game 1 go, you know, back and forth, until the Master Yi finally ran away with it. But Clark came in with a very different composition, you know, not this one champion machine gun carry strat, and the whole team showed up. Everybody put in work that time. Everybody put in the effort to make sure that the game went their team's way. And so you can see when the whole team puts in a concerted effort, how quickly they can gain and push the lead. And that's exactly why we're going to a game 3.
Yeah, it was such a convincing performance from Clark there. And it really opens up the entirety of game 3, right? They go with this non-standard composition, and now if you're Brighton, what do you do? Do you ban out the things that, you know, helped you get ahead in game 1, help you scale out, or, you know, how do you try and counter this? It's such an off-meta composition. It makes it undeniably difficult to deal with in game 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, what you do is you stick to your game 2 game plan. Let them pick that same lineup, but maybe beef up your front line, right? Like, you had the opportunity to try and scale for late game, but they spiked so early that it was really tough to have the defensive items in place when most of your champions' defensive items come in at 3 or 4th place. So, I mean, you can run that same exact composition, replace Mordekaiser with Ornn Maokai, replace the Fizz with an Orianna, and everything else stays the same. And you're good to go. The Kayn, take it or leave it. I think Shadow Assassin Kayn is kind of difficult to execute. You don't have much going if you can't execute the opponent very quickly, because you don't bring crowd control, you don't bring sustain, you just try and take out the opposing target as quickly as possible. And it was really difficult for him to do that because of how much CC was accompanying the poke that the team had. So I think, like I said, beefier top lane, crowd control mid laner, and honestly everything else works just fine.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will have to see the adjustments and the decisions each team makes here in game number 3. But before that happens, we're going to be taking a break. Don't go anywhere here on Play Versus Game 3. We'll be back in just a moment.
I think a lot of students have just gotten another sense of how to belong and how to create relationships outside of what were the traditional avenues.
And a lot of my students talk about how they feel safe in the esports program, and that's their family, that's their community. And I think that esports gives kids a future that they might otherwise not have.
Man, I wish that had been available when I was in high school.
I was always told growing up, it's gonna rot your brains, it's a waste of time, and then like now I see where esports is at, and my family and I at home, we watch the League of Legends Championship. One of the students here at BC, he came to me and said, hey, we're really interested in starting an esports team. Like, BC needs an esports team, and can you help us? I was a little bit apprehensive because I did not play video games and I wasn't sure what it would all entail. But then that same student came to my door almost every day the first week of school and said, "Have you talked to the principal? What's going on with the esports team?" It's really because of the students. They were the ones that I felt like, because they're so interested, I think I can do this. My team, they never played League of Legends before, and them going from starting out just at the basic beginnings to now they're in the 30s and seeing how their team work, they're strategizing, and they've basically taken ownership of our team and run with it. It's been fantastic. At our school, leadership is really encouraged and admired among the students. With esports, my students get an opportunity in a different way than what maybe traditionally would be thought of as this is a leadership role you would have. So we have a team captain, we also have a team coach, and they really work really well with the students to kind of bring them together, and they are the ones that outside of school, they're practicing. We get 3 hours of practice a day. They come in at 7 a.m. in the morning and they're waiting for me. They're like, "Hey, we're ready to go. Can we come in? Can we practice?" Originally, we were practicing 3 days a week, and they were like concerned they weren't getting enough practice. They were like, "Can we do more? Can we squeeze in another day?" So they wanted to do 5 days a week, but I was like, let's start with 3, let's build up to 4, and if we make it to playoffs, then we'll go to 5. They are just so motivated to kind of like take ownership of it. They basically decide beforehand what their bands are, who's doing what position, because I really would not have that kind of knowledge. And even though I don't play as much as they do, you know, you have to admire somebody who's built up their skill set. They've had to put in a lot of time and energy in order to be so good. And then when I play, I go like, wow, this is a lot harder than it looks. It has been wonderful watching how good my students have gotten in such a short amount of time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Play versus Desk. One last time here today. You know, Doctor, this is exactly from a outside perspective what you want in a grand final. A very tight game one, a huge turn of events from Clark in their draft in game two to pull something out of the box. It works for them. Now it's game three, match point, winner take all. What more do you want, really?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about game one and game three being the throwaway games. Like game one, you're coming into a new series, you need to feel out your opponents, and so you pick something kind of silly to make sure that, you know, everybody's on the same page on your team, and you feel out the opponent. Game three, you got nothing left to lose, might as well go with that cheeky strat that you've been practicing in secret on separate accounts that nobody knows about. But game two, really coming out with this Aram-style comp, 3 long-range poke abusers, and then 2 frontliners, really different from what we're currently seeing in the meta. And it seemed like there was a counter to it on the map in that Nautilus, but the pieces just didn't fall together.
It did not fall together for Clark in the last game, but we're going to jump straight into our draft here for game number 3. Seemingly the entire champion pool is open for us, so yeah, we'll get to see what gets banned out, what gets taken, the compositions. Really everything is open here, as the first ban from Brighton for the 3rd consecutive game has been that Katarina.
Yeah, I mean, Katarina is a champion that can be very strong, doesn't have a lot of counterplay. One of those champions with a counterplay is just CC her, and you're kind of left scratching your head being like, we need something else. And so definitely worthy of ban. Teemo being banned away. I definitely think we're going to see Pyke continuously banned away. The champion is very strong. Elise, definitely probably going to follow up with a Master Yi 3rd ban. The potential to not ban it here, though, is pretty high, because then you open up Brighton to first pick it, which means you are then knowing the counter pick already. Like last time I was picked 2nd rotation, so you'd already made 2 champion picks before the Master Yi pick. So if you don't ban it here, Brighton first picks it, you get the advantage because you were expecting it. You've had a whole game to think about a counter, and you know they banned it away anyway, so it's a moot point. But we're gonna have to see what Brighton decide to first pick here with their advantage.
And they will go for the Wukong. Now this is an interesting one because this is a champion that Clark has banned away in both games, I believe, prior to this. So Lurder will get his option there on the Wukong. I like that. It's a strong pick for Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a strong pick in its own right. I definitely personally prefer the jungle Wukong versus top lane Wukong, which is what we're going to be getting here with that Nasus pickup. 100% not Nasus jungle. You pick Nasus into the Xin Zhao because the scaling there, pretty big. You get the Wither to really deny a lot of what the Xin Zhao wants to do. And we saw Raise the Light coming out there from the Mordekaiser last game, you know, about halfway through, having completed the Bramble Vest and the Ninja Tabby, able to combat the Xin Zhao. But Mordekaiser needs some ability power to really make it worth it, whereas Nasus just needs stacks. He's going to go up there, play Minecraft for a few hours, pick up all the materials off the ground, and then come back, you know, decked out in all diamond and really put it through to the Xin Zhao. But he's going to have the same build path. It's going to be Bramble Vest, Ninja Tabby, Sheen is what he's going to go. And he's going to win the lane. At that point, the lane's over because Xin Zhao no longer has any recourse on how to actually fight the Nasus solo. But, I mean, we're going to have to see how the second phase of the draft goes through because they ban out 2 AD carries and they ban out 2 supports.
Yes, that is very interesting indeed, especially from Clark, because you know they focused on this 80 carry spot, and honestly in the past 2 games we haven't seen too much impact from these 80 carries. I think it's primarily been these mid laners and these junglers really going at it, so that's interesting. And Camacho on Clark going for the Xayah. We'll see how that goes out. It is a Victor as well for Brighton, who has been banned out in previous games there, so very, very interesting.
I am kind of curious about the 80 carry bans as well from Ed Clark. The reason being that, you know, we've seen Kai'Sa every single game. So it didn't to me makes sense to ban away Caitlyn Misfortune when Kaisa has been the go-to pick. But that is what we're going to be getting out of the draft here. The Vladimir pickup as well, just more and more late game insurance policy for Brighton. They really want to make sure that they can win past 30 minutes. The problem I have with that is last game was over by 20 minutes. And Ed Clark, they seem to go for the scaling route this time as too, picking up Vigar and Cassiopeia, but this time it's a Vigar support. You know, now that we have the Zaya in the full marksman role, going to be building all of that damage. There's no tank available for Ed Clark, so we're going to have to see how that goes. But, I mean, they have a ton of damage. Like, they could just rip through anybody put in front of them.
Yes, this... At least when I look on the surface of this feels as though Brighton is trying, I think, to go back to that game one of just, let's sit back and try and outscale, but... Ladies and gentlemen, we are here back in the Rift, game number 3. Everything on the line here for the Mountain Regional Final. Brighton versus Clark. I just cannot wait.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know what to expect from this game. These picks are really combobulated. And I think a lot of it comes down to Zerenfer again on the Cassiopeia. Game 1, absolutely runaway game for him, making sure that everything was, you know, in the team's hands to really make sure that the W came along with it. This time, not in the marksman matchup, though, does have to deal with this Vladimir, who is going to be continuously pushing the lane. And, you know, we're not going to have the same opportunity for roaming that Cassiopeia had game 1.
Another interesting part is, well, here for Clark, they are going with a topside start in their jungle, so you'll see these junglers working diagonally from each other, going perhaps in opposite directions here. A little bit, again, standard, of course, being on the bot side start, but it will allow that Clark bot lane to actually get ahead a little bit and try and build an advantage for level 2.
Yeah, we do see the vertical jungling coming through from the Wukong, taking their own first buff, then going across the way and getting the first buff from the other team. You know, they saw this because the enemy bottom lane was already in the lane. They really wanted to get that level 2 first for the Zaya Vigar bot lane because they didn't want to get overly aggressed on by the Leona.
Oh, and this is a problem. Cufflets will get the CC on to Dinosaur Chainsaw, but nothing coming of it yet. You can see the immediate pressure already for Clark High School. The advantage of not having to leash for your jungler. It's going to give them plenty of time and space to make something happen here. So we see extended trade going on in the mid lane, but this is the dangerous part of the game where HP Destroyer is just going to go right into Lucas, that blast cone going off. But now HP Destroyer, he's sort of just stuck. He's trying to flash, and he gets away from Zeren. For just a moment, Zeren tries to follow up with a flash of his own, but here we go. Andy Sue trying to peel for HP Destroyer as much as he can, and that amazingly results in no takedown.
Yeah, I really did not expect that. I saw HP Destroyer start the 1v1 against the Lee Sin, and I was like, why are you doing that, Monkey Man? You don't win that in the slightest. And then, you know, they kind of recognized that and started retreating, but then retreated directly into the Cassiopeia. And I was like, all right, you definitely don't win the 2v1. You don't win the 1v1. And then the failed flash ends up being the saving grace, which is just so odd. You never see it. But, I mean, hey, every time one of those plays works, 10 more don't work. And he got the 1% this time.
And you will, of course, take every single edge that you can get here, as we are just about level in game 3, but here we go. Oh no. Dinosaur tries to go in on Cufflets, but it's a very dangerous proposition. The Zaya now returning with so much damage with those feather daggers. Leona, of course, such strong engage potential. You want to try and go after those squishies, but not quite able to land it there. It was Dinosaur, the follow from Savage. Also not quite there, and you can see the double CC is a flash in for Dinosaur. It's going to go huge. It's the first takedown going the way of Savage. He will pick that one up in the bot lane. Wukong was there to help. Oh, now we go back into the mid lane. Lucas trying to hop through on that Lee Sin will not find Andy, though. There's your fireworks there for game 3.
Exactly. Very nice gank down in the bottom lane. Ended up not being necessary, but even with the Zenith Blade not following through the event horizon there, still gets the stun down, which is what the important part is. You know, not having flash on the Xayah there either, because it was burned in the play earlier when they tried to aggress onto the Leona who had flashed under tower. But, I mean, just overall, very nicely played there. That should be enough for the takedown. No! The passive coming in through, being able to get that 12% HP return on takedown, keeping Zerenfer alive, winning the 1v1 even through the Ignite. Safeguard having a little bit of help as well, excuse me. Really coming in clutch for the Cassiopeia there.
And that was so tight as well. You could see Andy there on that Victor. Literally 1 HP. Almost got away. Just couldn't quite do it. Oh, here we go. Seeker is just going to go right in with that Xena, trying to get onto that Nasus. And he's going to absolutely tear him to shreds. He won't follow all the way under the tower, but that is a massive trade in favor of Seeker. It's forcing the recall.
Yeah, I mean, having backed earlier, getting the Berserker Greaves along with the extra potions, already having the advantage, the item advantage there, excuse me, really lets the Xin Zhao pursue that type of aggressive action. You know, we hadn't seen an item come out yet from the Nasus. First item, Sheen. I don't agree with it. I definitely think the first item, Bramble Vest, would have been much more utilitarian. You know, you can fight off the Lee Sin potential dives. You don't have to worry about the Xin Zhao healing through anything you do. They cost the same amount of money, except you get so much more out of a Bramble Vest.
We'll have to see if that tactical decision works out for Lurder there in the top lane. Is, you know, both of these teams are playing a bit more conservative. You know, we've had a couple of explosive moments, but really we haven't seen some of that all aggression that we've seen in previous games here. Seeker, of course, looking to build that damage, but Lurder staying alive. Of course, both mid laners working against each other as Zeren trying to go back in on Andy, who's forced to stay under his tower.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Zennifer is just controlling the lane, landing every single poison shot.
Oh, and here we... Oh, my goodness. Look at this. It's going to be an even trade, 1-for-1 there as HP Destroyer hops in. Oh, and look, additional backup has arrived. HP Destroyer trying to go in on Lucas. He will get it as a double for him. Brighton get the 1-for-2.
Double coming in for HP Destroyer is absolutely massive. Being able to take out both the Lee Sin and the Cassiopeia is even that much better, that much sweeter. Oh, the Comet was barely not enough!
How in the world did that not go through right there? Oh, I thought that Vigar was absolutely lost. But that Arcane Comet just not enough to finish it. Unbelievable scenes there. Regardless, the damage output will give Brighton the advantage near that Drake. As you can see, Lurder finally forcing that Xin Zhao to at least back away from him at this moment. I can't believe the Vigar didn't get dropped. Oh my goodness.
They do get the Cloud Drake on their side for Brighton, though. 10% ultimate cooldown reduction is going to be coming in very handy with this squad, between the Eclipse or Solar Flare from the Leona, the Cyclone from the Wukong, the Hemoplague from the Vladimir. Just really making sure that these team fights are all theirs. It's so impactful.
Every single inch matters in this game. We're so close, so level. in this game 3 is Andy's going to look to take a trade here with Zarin. He actually gets a decent amount of damage out on that Cassiopeia, so credit to Andy there, starting to work his way back into that mid lane. He's a little bit behind, so he needs some of those extended trades to go his way.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it by his items. He's really rushing that cooldown reduction, needing as many transfusions as possible. You know, every single one mattering because it gets him that much closer to winning the trade. But it also keeps him healthy in these fights because you can see here he's taking every bit of poison that Zerinfer is throwing out there. And so the more transfusions, the better he can really stay in the lane without having to be forced back.
Oh, and you can see just how advantageous that can be as a flashback in from Andy is beautiful. It's absolutely awesome, but he's going to be in trouble here. 2 more members of Clark are just going to jump right in. Not much you can do about that. It ends up being the even trade, but give him credit. He does win the 1v1 initially. Oh goodness, here we go. HP Destroyer. It's just going to hop back in on Lucas. I thought he might have had him there.
I really liked the dragon kick into the Event Horizon. It looked really nice. But yeah, I mean, more and more takedowns trading in the mid lane. It's such an active lane. Yes, Andy has died that 1 extra time, but I mean, he's not doing so bad in items. He is going to be completing that proto belt shortly, and every time that ignites up, you can definitely expect him to be going all in on these trades. I mean, you can see that he is winning them. The Cassiopeia doesn't have any health items right now, really rushing the Seraphs and Blaze, wants to stay alive, wants to be able to stack that as quickly as possible, but it means that these trades are not in her favor.
It can be difficult to see a little bit of ARAM perhaps in the mid lane. And I think the call from Brighton here is going to be try and go after that Xayah. They know that she's alone. They'll see if they can get it, but of course, widely stepping back there is Camacho. They're take a look back into the top lane. Bit of a trade fest going on, and while Brighton looking to push their advantage, they're going to be starting on the Rift Herald.
Yeah, I mean, they know that there's multiple members bot side. The top lane is fairly Nasus controlled. He's keeping it about middle of the lane, so Seeker is looking to try and get a pick in the 1v1 against the Nasus.
Oh, and that's a problem for Lucas. He doesn't quite land it, and now he's just stunned. It'll allow... Oh, goodness, never mind. That kick right back in. You can see exactly what Clark built this composition to do. That is absolutely nasty. Savage stood no chance there.
Yeah, once again, that Dragon Rage. Event Horizon, it's a true combo. You can't escape it. And that takedown is secured. And the buddy system being employed, rightfully so now, by Cufflets and Lucas.
Oh, but here we go. Dinosaur Chainsaw is just going to go straight in. That is one Vigard no longer on the server, absolutely deleted. But Zara and Lucas still around. We'll make sure that there's no additional follow-up. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so much damage coming out of the Vladimir already. Too many V names on the map. But, I mean, not even having completed the first item yet, already exploding with damage. We are going to have to watch this as this continues to transgress. You know, Vladimir is another one of these champions that just simply wins late game. And so, as he continues to build up power, build up items, we'll have to see how he really trades with this late game Cassiopeia that we saw from game 1. But I mean, right now, Dragon spawns, danger in the bot lane.
Oh, you can see HP Destroyer though is going to turn right back in. Lucas manages to pick up the initial one on Savage, but it's immediately traded. Dinosaur Chainsaw flashes out of the Event Horizon, but back in goes Andy. He's trying to pick up extra damage. Camacho finds Dinosaur. HP Destroyer now looking to go on Camacho. Oh, that's just no good there. Andy picks up Camacho. Another flashback in for Lerner is going to find Couplets. And that is a bit messy. It's 2 for 3 in favor of Brighton.
Yeah, plus they get the Rift Herald down. This will be the first brick going the way of Brighton as well. They are going to split the money there. We see the TP coming out of Cassiopeia. I don't expect them to try and return to the Dragon unless they get a favorable trade here. But no second charge of the Herald. The pings are there, but we can already see Clark is just beelining for the Dragon.
Yes, they understand how important these objectives can be. This game's still really wide open. As now Brighton, oh well, they're just grouped up there. They're going to take it. It will be their second, and it is a mountain, or excuse me. Zark? Did I mess that up?
They got a mountain and they unleashed the Ocean Soul on the map. Pretty big soul to get, I feel. You know, guaranteeing you healing on every strike. Oh, man.
We see here Savage just absolutely inflicting some damage onto Cufflets. And this is the problem that you face as the Vigar support there, right? Where anytime the opposing AD carry is able to step up and there's no threat of that CC, there's a ton of damage output. There's not much you can do to stop it. As we can see, Seeker here is just going to try and go in on Lurder, who's able to step away. It's roughly an even trade. Top lane's been a bit of a stalemate so far, but look at the CS difference.
Yeah, we can already see a completed item for Seeker in the sense of that Blade of the Ruin King, whereas Lurder not really close to his completed set either. Not available just yet. He is sitting on, you know, just that, you know, set of armor items and the Sheen. Not able to really fight back just yet, but for now he is just going to have to try and contest, stay alive, and make sure that the tower doesn't go down.
Oh, and here we go. This is an interesting spot here as Lucas has tried to push up and steal that buff. He is just going to wisely step away. He does not want anything to do with Andy. It will allow HP Destroyer to retain ownership of that buff.
Yeah, a little help from your friends goes a long way in the jungle, making sure that, you know, you don't lose your camps, you don't lose your buff, and just scare away the big bad meanie. And so now, as the teams kind of reset, we're going to go back to a little bit of farming for a little while. The bottom lane here of Brighton going to continue to try and push this early game advantage that they have for themselves. Nasus just going to continuously farming Q stacks until the end of time.
But you can see how dangerous that trade is for Lurder. He's so low now. Seeker is going to try and push in. He may just go in here either to take the turret or try and take down Lurder. And that turret's going to fall. This is problematic for Lurder. Oh, but here we go. He turns that right around. He's under the effects of the Blade of the Ruin King. Oh, it's so close. He ultimately gets to the shutdown. Lurder turning it around onto that Jin Zhao. That is
losing
big.
the tower. But getting the takedown is massive. You shut down your direct lane opponent, you get a couple of seconds of farm. Teleport is available, so I will expect the Nasus to back off quickly.
Oh my.
That's a lot of damage.
That's a bit of a problem. You can see the Brighton squad grouped up in the bottom lane here. They're just going to try and push this right in. They're trying to go against that Xayah HP Destroyer. Certainly perhaps taking an ambitious bit of pathing there. Absolutely trying to bully where he can. Oh, he might get caught out. Camacho's right there. And those Xayah Feather Daggers are just not enough.
That is
very so close for Clark.
It's not over.
Oh, here we go. Xayah popping that ultimate. Trying to output as much damage as she possibly can. Defending that turret with every ounce of power she's got, but it will not be enough, I think, here. Dinosaur, Andy, and Savage will get that turret. It's just so close each way.
Yeah, I mean, both teams really showing things together, being able to take the small battles that lead to the bigger battles. We can see already how the two teams are really fighting for this game 3. They don't want to let it go. They don't want to give up this state championship that easily. And, you know, maybe even some nerves are starting to kick in. You know, we saw the Lee Sin get caught out down bottom. HP Destroyer making a similar play, getting caught out, doesn't end up going down, but does end up losing his 80 carry flash.
Oh, and you can see this from Andy. He's going to be forced to put away. Oh, but look at the aggression coming back from Dinosaur Chainsaw. We'll just try and go in and aggress on 3. His teammates there and back him up, but Lee Sin shuts down the Wukong. That is absolutely huge. Dinosaur trying to go in and get more. He will fall to Zeren, but immediately the trade comes back in. We're following a Steve right now from Lerner, who's trying to just go and punish Lucas and Zeren. He manages to get Zeren. Will he find Lucas as well? No. Even 2 for 2. That could have been utterly disastrous for Brighton. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's an odd trade back and forth. They do end up going 2 for 2, and it was a really seemingly split decision there from Brighton.
Oh, but here we go. This is even more damage coming out. Andy will get cufflets on the Vigar. And that's just a straight pick. Here's the issue. It's going to force 2 recalls, and I believe Brighton here, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to take their 3rd Drake.
Yeah, I mean, definitely an impactful dragon. It does put them on soul point as well. And now it sets up a really tough decision for Clark to make. Do they fight for the Dragon Soul like we've seen in the past, or do they try and, you know, trade it for a Baron? Again, I definitely advise against doing that, as I did earlier in the game or series, but they have to make the decision. They have to fight for it, and so they need to get into a position where they can fight for it and not lose too much.
Feels almost an opposite in the fact of what we had in that game 1, right? Where they, you know, where each school had split off those objectives and just wait to scale. As you'll see Cufflets here get some damage on the Dinosaur, but it's not a ton. And all of a sudden, you know, the biggest thing I think that we drew there from that last, you know, that 2 for 2 trade, ultimately Wukong does hand over that shutdown gold, and that can really allow Clark to come back in his game. You can see the gold up on the top there is almost even across both teams. Those shutdowns are huge.
Yeah, I mean, 300, 400 gold at any given time is an extra cloth armor. It's an extra dagger. I was going to say Brawler's Glove, but that item doesn't exist anymore. And so when you give your opponent essentially a free component to an item that you're now losing, you set yourself that much further behind your opponent, even if you do come from a place on high. You know, if you do start, you know, at this 4-0, oh no.
Oh my goodness. HP Destroyer will go over the wall and try and get Lucas. Will it be enough? It will. He goes under the turret to get 1. Is there any follow-up though? Cufflets is just sort of stuck under that tower there. He does have the vision, and he'll see Brighton moving away, but that is another pick going in Brighton's favor. They are seemingly, little by little, trade by trade and take by take, they're moving into the driver's seat here. Can they do this Baron in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, you know, the correct play. They have a lot of damage on their composition. They took down the enemy jungler. You have Vladimir frontlining against the opponent. It makes a lot of sense to go for this play.
And there you go. Brighton will pick it up. There is no contest from Clark. They advise against it. And now, if they weren't before, they certainly in the driver's seat now, Brighton. They do have that Baron buff up. We have just over 2 minutes until the Drake, so that's not going to be a factor yet. And here we go. How much can they push in?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the last time this team got a Baron. It was pretty impactful. And so for now, we have to see what they can do to make it even better for themselves. They have this super fed Nasus, 4-0, already 2 completed items, tons of stacks to go along with it. He is a terror to believe, and so he's really winning these team fights that he's involved in because he's just so difficult to take down. You know, the Thornmail really shutting down the Jin Zhao in its entirety, and Andy just so big on this Vladimir already. Yes, his scoreline's 3-3 and 7, but with the 2 completed items, he is solo winning a lot of these fights and really controlling the narrative. Right now we got the teleport coming in from Vigar to try and defend that top line, but Brighton seems very content with just giving or taking that advantage, taking that summoner spell.
That is certainly something that worked out in their favor, as we see Andy here trying to go in on Zarin, but the trade doesn't quite work out for him. Oh, here comes the re-aggression from Brighton, but they're a little bit spread out, a little bit mixed up here. HP Destroyer trying to find one, will not get it, and it's awkward now. Nobody really trying to overextend too much. These jungle corridors standing in the way. We talked about it a little bit earlier from this Brighton. It just feels like they're a little unsure of when to go in.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of split calls coming in from Brighton. Really interrupted by the miasma. You know, canceling out movement abilities means that the Vladimir, the Leona, the Wukong can't, you know, enact their engages. A couple times now we've seen, you know, the solar flare come in as the miasma went down, and so the Leona can no longer Zenith Blade aggressively like this.
Yeah, that is a problem.
That's how it's supposed to happen. And with 40 seconds down, the dragon now spawning. The only thing preventing the Ocean Soul coming through right now is the Lee Sin you see on your screen. And Andy says, not today.
No, and this is certainly Brighton in this spot. Now claiming that Ocean Soul. You'll see Andy here. Look at how adventurous he's going to be. So he'll just go right in, charging against that Xayah, absolutely ignoring any sort of damage she can output. His Dinosaur will go in as well, trying to catch out Zarin. Zarin's ignited. He will ultimately go down. Camacho retreating just far enough into base. But it's Brighton. They've just been winning every single engagement that they've taken as HP Destroyer still lurking, waiting. Maybe. No, he's not going to challenge Lucas just yet.
I mean, they now have the Ocean Soul. It's so difficult to take them down, because if they can survive the burst coming from your team, they're going to heal it back up so quickly.
Oh, and look at Seeker there. Going absolutely massive to just at least push Brighton back for a moment. But here we go. Dinosaur and Andy putting some pressure onto the tower. Camacho trying to get that stun onto Andy, but he just manages to sidestep everything perfectly. That bottom outer turret will fall. We'll see if Brighton can get any inhibitors. They're close, but not quite. They're just going to be pushed away. They are grouped as 5 in the middle. And they're, I believe, going to try and just recall, reset, figure it out. How do we try and end this game?
Yeah, I mean, you can see how carefully they're playing, not overstaying their welcome, not overplaying their hand. You know, the Baron's in a minute and a half. They don't make the call to overly push on those inhibitors. They recognize that they got the tower down, and that's 90% of the work to getting an inhibitor, is getting that tower in front of it to fall down. They got it on 2 separate inhibitors. Those are now open wide to whoever wants to say hi. And so right now, they recall, spend all of the money they got from the Dragon play plus everything afterwards, and now they are recouping. They're getting vision down, setting up around the Baron pit. You can see Leona in the enemy jungle, getting some deep vision down, throwing out that vision plant, and potentially flanking the Vigar here to really make this Baron play worth it again.
And you can see this is not going to go well for Cufflets. That tower dive nearly flawless, but ooh, Seeker can't really step up to Andy. And here's the thing as well, when you have that Ocean Soul, all of a sudden these dive plays become much more effective. When you get all that regen, you don't have to worry as much about taking those tower hits. You can just go in, make those plays, establish presence. You can see Andy as well going to follow up onto Zaya. Almost, she will use her ultimate to get away. It'll keep her safe for now.
This phase rush, Vladimir, so incredibly difficult to try and get away from. He hits you with a couple abilities, all of a sudden he's coming at you at Mach 2, and you have to burn abilities to get away from him. That time, luckily, it was just the ultimate. You didn't have Flash or Heal available, so you did the next best thing. And now you can already see Nasus entering the base in the bottom line. We do see the 4 members pushing into the top side. Other than Andy Sue, he's just kind of chilling in the mid lane. But there's no tower there. He can just walk up and take that inhibitor. He does not have to play nicely here.
At some point, Clark has to step up and contest with everything they got. There's going to be a flash bird from Zara as they try to go in on Lurder here. And you can see a big fight approaching. Clark backed absolutely to their own corner. They have absolutely no choice. They have to go for this. As Zerd trying to get them both, but he will fall. The rotation comes through, and now it's a 5-man group as HP Destroyer will flash in, trying to pick up the Zaya going after that backline. Will he get it? No. Lucas shuts it down, and all of a sudden, Clark has just held on here. Seeker just doing everything that he can. Andy actually picks up one, and Savage picks up another. All of a sudden, the avenue's back up for Brighton. They have just pushed it in. There's no stopping it now. They will take this game. Maybe. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I mean, that is going to be the Brighton squad taking home the championship here. They win it 2-1 in a best-of-3 series, working the entire way through that game 1 comeback because of the Master Yi. Super duper clutch. They would not have been here without that type of hard carry mentality. Game 2 didn't exactly go their way, but they had the mental toughness to push on through, come back into the game 3, pick very different champions from across the board, and make it work. They put the work in, they took the W, and they're taking home this championship.
Yes, congratulations to the boys at Brighton. They are your Mountain Region League of Legends champions. I just feel so privileged to have watched this series. It was so back and forth. They put in an absolutely monumental effort in Game 1. It really didn't work for them in Game 2, as you said. And then Game 3, they just kept building up and building up and building up. It wasn't, huge team fights. It wasn't any crazy plays. They got their picks, they worked on their objectives, and once they took their advantages, they just went with it.
Yeah, and so we do have Lincoln joining us here on the caster desk here for a short interview. How you doing, man?
Great.
I would certainly hope so, as you guys have pulled out a really tough series there. Tell me a little bit here, Lincoln. What was your thought process like going into this Game 3? We saw obviously huge back and forth games 1 and 2. You're going to this series deciding Game 3. What was your thought process going into it?
So from Game 1, we definitely knew that we wanted someone that could really hyper carry a team, just like our Master Yi did the first game. So we decided to pick up the Vlad, which really worked for us.
Yeah, I mean, the Vladimir, obviously such a huge champion, throughout League of Legends history. Did you feel comfortable playing it into that Cassiopeia, though? Game 1, the Lucian didn't quite work out so well in that matchup.
Yeah, Cassiopeia is always really hard to play into, but I think from the first game we realized how we could play into it and how we could just play around her.
Excuse me, sorry. In that Game 3 there, as you're working towards the end, I'm just reading up on you guys a little bit here. Last season, I believe you guys finished as the runner-up, yeah?
Yeah. Second place last season.
How much better is it to be taking home that first place this time?
It's so great, like especially since we lost to Clark last season in finals too. It was like something we needed to do so we could kind of just get it out there.
So leading up to this championship, you said it's the run back essentially. Did you guys augment your training or practice coming in? Did you guys practice extra hard? You're like, we really need to take it this time?
Yeah, we really put in the initiative to play solo queue, but not only that, practice like every week and try and get scrims in with each other and get our synergy together as much as we could before the game.
I want to ask as well, at your school, do you guys have like a setup, like, dedicated area to practice? Is it more online? Tell us about the environment, at your school that allows you guys to succeed.
So we started off in we had a computer room that we played in, but construction began on our school, so we moved into the library before school stopped and we started playing at home.
I would imagine the library is a tough venue for doing voice comms and making callouts.
Yeah, we usually, sometimes as much as we could, we'd close it off for us so we could have our focus in there.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm all set, man. I just once again want to congratulate you on your victory here. I don't have any more questions for you. I don't know if Matt here does.
I'll give you one last question before we go. This is something we're asked to give all of our champions. If you had to name an MVP on your team, you can't count yourself. Give me the MVP of your team and tell me why they put you in the position to succeed.
I think our jungler played so good these games. I think he really put in the initiative to carry that first game, and then the third game really put work in to get the rest of the lanes ahead.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lincoln. It was a pleasure talking to you. And once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Going out senior year with a bang here on PlayVS.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
Yep.
All right. Have a good one, man. Thank you.
You too, guys. Thank you.
All right, Matt. So I think that just about does it for us here today on the Caster Desk. We put in 2 banger series today, both events showing up clutch. Shout outs to New York and the Mountain regions today. I couldn't be more excited to have done this today. And man, I'm happy. It's always great to be on the PlayVS desk.
Yes, it absolutely is. And guys, if you're watching here and you're interested in doing this in the future, make sure you check out PlayVS. That is PlayVS.com. You can check the links on our Twitch channel here underneath. You can see if this is something you're interested in doing. Talk to your teachers, talk to your parents, talk to your advisors. If you guys can always make the push in your own community if you think this is really cool. Go ahead and look. Signups are open in the fall, and yeah, it's such a privilege to be able to watch these young players work together and succeed. And I love hearing from them the positive attitude that they have. It's just a really great environment. So go ahead, check that out. Doctor, any last words before we go?
Nope, I think that just about does it, man. I believe we are back Thursday here, same spot, different time. But if you want all of the updates, be sure to follow PlayVS on Twitter as well. Twitter.com/PlayVS is the link there. I had to remember if there was an underscore or not. Sometimes it gets a little tricky. But yeah, other than that, just about does it for us today.
Yes, thank you guys for tuning in. We love you all and appreciate you all. Stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you next time here on PlayVS.